welcome to our webinar.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep, sure can.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think what we're gonna start, and if people come on, we'll let them in. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. My name is Pete Sharrow. I'm the president and CEO of the company, and I would like to welcome everybody. These webinars have been very successful in providing some great information. I want to take the time to thank John Perrotta for being our guest speaker. And just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. We have people in the background that will look at the chat and be able to respond to anything that any questions that you may have. So I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan because he's better looking and he's better at this than I am. So thank you again, everyone.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. And again, thanks to John Perrotta, our guest here today. So basically, we're just going to have a conversation. John and I'm going to ask some questions just to ask or answer the broad questions that many people may have about MonuGrid, how it works, why it works, where we're applying it, and how cemeteries are using it on a regular basis. So my name is Jonathan Sharrow. I'm the technical and installation specialist at MonuGrid. I've been using these grids for a really long time in both landscaping and cemetery industry. So that's what I do with MonuGrid. I go out on the road and I train cemeteries on how to use it. I do virtual training as well. I do technical assistance, whatever that cemeteries need. Once they have the grid and they start applying it, I'm one phone call away, and I usually can deal with whatever you're dealing with on the phone, and you can go ahead and build these foundations on your own. So that's pretty a broad overview of what I do. And I want to say hello to our guest today, John Perrotta. I'm going to let John first, before we start, just give us a little rundown of what you do, where you've been, how long you've been in the industry, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everybody on the webinar. So I've been in cemeteries for quite some time. I actually started in 1998 as a summer student. One of those stories where my father worked in cemeteries. And as soon as I turned of age, he brought me to work, and I never left. It's such a great industry. So I've been here for, again, quite some time. Held various positions. I started with the Catholic cemeteries in the Diocese of Hamilton, which is in Ontario, Canada. From there, I moved over to the city of Hamilton, again in Ontario, as a superintendent of cemeteries, so overseeing 70 municipal cemeteries. And just about a year ago, I moved over to the Mount Pleasant group of cemeteries, where here we operate 10 cemeteries, 10 active cemeteries. Quite a fair-sized property. We do about 10,000 burials a year within all the properties. So, I've experienced in different aspects of the industry.
So just a little bit of experience.
Just a touch.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks a lot for joining us. So my first question, I guess, has to do with, our title, From Burden to Benefit. So when I say monument maintenance is a burden, what comes to mind for you and your team when you hear something like that? What's your biggest burden when it comes to monument maintenance and stuff?
For sure. So our biggest burden would be, number one, is safety of the monuments and markers on our site, right? So we've got a lot of older cemeteries, a lot of failing foundations, which I'm sure is common throughout all cemeteries. So that is a burden. Is number one, how do we repair all these? How do we get our best bang for the buck, essentially, right? Going with the old concrete method, you're not going to get as many monuments repaired as going with the MonuGrid product. That's a burden. The flat markers, a lot of sunken markers in all of our cemeteries. Let's be honest, it just sinks over time. And to me, like, cemeteries are so important. It's a part of our community, and I don't like seeing markers that are sunk. I want markers to be visible and present at all times, right? This person, has
Yeah,
family.
for sure.
They're part of the community, right? So I think it's so important to make sure that these are above ground perpetually, right? So those are the two biggest concerns: sunken markers and failing foundations.
And from your experience, like what's the recurring problem with flat markers? I know that a lot of cemeteries that I go to and I speak to, the common problem with sinking flat markers is that there's no foundation underneath, right? So there's a misconception, I guess, that because it's a flat marker and it's somewhat light, that you can just put it on the ground and it won't start sinking or anything like that. But as we can see, they are sinking. Do you think
Absolutely.
that's one main reason for it, is
For
just
sure.
not having any foundation underneath?
Absolutely. Prior to MonuGrid, any marker, flat marker that was set was just set. You cut out the 24 by 18, 4 inches thick, and you lay the marker there. Yeah, great. It's
Yeah,
level. But for how long is the question, right? So yeah, absolutely. There was never any base installed, no mats, no foundations, nothing. It was just like you said, Jonathan, the assumption that the weight won't sink the marker.
yeah.
But clearly we've learned from that
And
that's not the case.
yeah, of course. And do you think that one of the problems with that is maybe that the industry has just accepted that this is part of an aging cemetery, that markers are going to sink and stuff like that? Or is it, a lack of maybe awareness, or not knowing what other problems are out there, or maybe it's a budgetary thing? What do you think it
Yeah,
comes down to?
I think it's a bit of everything, but I think mainly budget. All right, having the
Yeah.
funds and having the staff to go in and raise all these markers. Here in Ontario, and I don't know where everybody is from, so I'm just going to refer to Ontario. We have a care and maintenance fund for monuments and markers, so you contribute to that every time a marker or monument's installed. Um, but even that, we're talking, $100, $200, or $400 that goes into this fund, and you can only use the interest that it generates to repair these monuments and markers. So we're not talking, a huge amount of dollars, right? So you've got to have the funds to be able to, staff your cemeteries, raise your markers, and without the MonuGrid, you could be doing that every 2 to 3 years, right? If you want to make
Well,
sure
that's
that, yeah. All
that
right, if
was
you
my
want to make
next
sure.
comment, right? Is
Yeah.
even have you tried other fixes or quick fixes in the past that haven't lasted? Because I think that's one of the issues as well with cemeteries not wanting or having the motivation to go and fix these markers, is that they know that they're going to sink again
Yeah.
after a certain amount of time. So are there any quick fixes that you had tried in the past that didn't really work out before going to MonuGrid? Or
Just adding more soil at the bottom of the marker, to be honest. It's pop out the marker, add some more soil, compact it, put the marker back on. Really, that's the only method that I've ever seen used. We never added any screening or any concrete or anything.
Okay.
So yeah, just pop it up and
So
add
just adding
soil.
more soil, and eventually that soil compacts again, and then you're in the same boat, right?
Absolutely. You're just
And what about
contributing to the
uprights
problem.
with like concrete foundations and stuff like that? Would you do the same thing, or would you add screening on top of the concrete, or how would you go about that?
Yeah, so sometimes we would, it really depends how much of a lean there was. Sometimes we would put some shims in there, right, to kind of straighten it up, and then add some topsoil and seed to kind of make it look level. Sometimes we would cap it, so we would take a breaker gun, take off the top, re-pour the foundation on top so it's level. But even that is a challenge, right? Because water gets in there,
For
that's
sure.
gonna pop again. So yeah, those are some
Yeah.
of the quick fixes that we've tried, and I'm sure everybody in the industry has just tried in the past.
Yeah, for sure. So how often do the weather conditions, like the freeze-thaw cycle, how much would that set you back in your efforts of trying to level these foundations with the regular methods with the concrete and stuff like that? I think it's kind of hard to plan a good day so that everything can fall into place, and then you can pour the concrete. How does the weather and stuff like that affect how much of an effort you're going to put into maintaining or raising these monuments?
Yeah, it definitely does. So obviously, there's other priorities in the cemetery. There's interments obviously take top priority, so we have to make sure that's properly staffed. But yeah, I mean the weather contributes. If we have rain, it's tough to get out and raise these. I'm thinking in the fall and springtime here, the ground conditions are terrible. So you don't want to drive your equipment into the section because all you're doing is creating even more of a mess, right? So you're really limited
Exactly.
to, let's say, July and August, September to get that kind of work done, where the ground is hard enough to go in and make those repairs. So yeah, it's definitely challenging. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And do you see, like, since you've been using MonuGrid, do you see that during those times where you can't take equipment in because of the simplicity of MonuGrid and you don't have to bring heavy equipment, do you find that you can get that done even though you wouldn't be able to do it with heavy machinery
Absolutely.
on doing the regular way? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's all lightweight. You can just use a gator or a golf cart. You throw some stone in the back, even a wheelbarrow if you need it. Fill up a wheelbarrow, bring it out to the section and do the work. So yeah, absolutely. Makes it a lot easier for sure. Now we're talking when there's no monument. Oh, with a marker we can lift it, but for a monument we'd obviously the equipment to get in there to raise and
of
remove
course.
the monument. But
We
yeah,
don't suggest that anyone lifts a monument with their hands. Use the proper equipment, but you need less.
Yeah, very good point. Use the proper equipment. But
Yeah,
for
sure.
a marker, really, it's all year round. Again, as long as we don't have too much frost, we can get in there and do it all year round.
Awesome. So, like I said, you've been using MonuGrid for quite some time now. Do you remember a moment where you realized, okay, yeah, this is a game changer, and you put aside the skepticism or whatever, and you decided, yeah, this is a game changer. We're going to be using this, moving forward.
Yep. Yeah. I learned about the product probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And I thought, is this too good to be true? And let me test it out. Just a little skeptical, like probably some people are with change.
For
So
sure.
I ended up purchasing the product. We used it for raising markers, installing new markers. And then I would have a tracking system where I'd go back once a month to look at all these markers and has it sunk yet? Is it still level? Let me go through a whole winter, go back, any difference. And, it did that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, continuing to go back and nothing. So that was hey, you know what? This is a fantastic solution that we can raise these markers once, or any new installation, you use the product right from the start. You'll never have to go back to raise that marker, which is music to my ears, right? Any cemetery operator would agree, right? Everything is level. There's no you're raising markers, no service requests. Not to mention families, right? Families come, they see their sunken marker. We get a lot of service requests. Please raise the marker, and that's upsetting, right? You're visiting a loved one. You want that marker to be level and clean and look presentable and respectable. So this all contributes to that.
And would you say, like you said something interesting there when you said that the families see a sunken marker and stuff like that, have you found that this shortens your turnover time? Because like you said, right, we can just throw this in a golf cart and go ahead and fix the monument. So is there less of a lag between them saying, oh, my marker's sunken, we'll fix it? So, because you don't need all of that equipment to pour concrete, you can do it pretty quickly.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. And we can, again, depending on the weather, we can do this all year round, right? So absolutely, I would agree. Definitely.
Awesome. That's great.
Jonathan,
Pete, go ahead.
and John, if I could just add a comment, what you said earlier. In our last webinar, I remember Kelly Fardella telling us that she was skeptical at the beginning, and she made a comment on the webinar that stuck to us. And she said, seeing is believing. And once she saw how it worked, she's never turned back. So that always stuck to me, because when you mentioned, going back and looking at it and going back. And so anyway, sorry, John, I didn't want to detract.
It's really, it's a change for the industry, right? And we can go back hundreds of years, and this is the way it's always been done, right? So when you throw in something new like this, yeah, you're going to be skeptical, and yeah, seeing is believing. Absolutely. So yeah, agreed.
That's great. And just keeping on the skepticism and pushback, I know that when I go to do on-site trainings, I always hit some sort of a wall, right? When I go and meet the crew that's actually going to be installing it, because either they don't really understand it, or they don't know what it is. They've never seen it before. So have you faced any pushback from your crews saying that, you know, this might not work and stuff like that? And how did they react once they tried it? Because I see that a lot, is I get the skepticism up front, and then when we go out on site and actually try it, then, you know, it clicks into their head, and
Yeah,
and they love it.
you're right. Yeah, you know, some people, and including my staff, and they just look at it like, oh, this is not going to work. Well, you know, we're doing this extra work, and then they
Yeah.
go and they do it, and they experience it, and they see that it works, and yeah, they're 100% on board. Like they flip their perspective on it, right? But yeah, and then again, it goes back to change, right? I think change management is needed if you're going to implement this.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. Now it's something different, right? So it's just helping them understand the reason why you're making this change, and the benefits of it will definitely go a long way in getting your buy-in from your staff. And the amount
Yeah,
of
I
work,
agree.
it's not that much extra work, right? You're digging what, 2 inches deeper than you would be, you know, have a mat, you're screening. It's not, the reality is it's not that much extra work, right? You do most of the work up front. You never have to go back and raise the marker. So look at it that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we have a question here about the freeze thaw cycle. So if one of our guys can read that question out loud, and we can talk about that.
So the question is, John, you're in Ontario. Please talk about the freeze throw impact on this product. In Nebraska, we have a build foundations below the front line. Does this product eliminate that?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. For the freeze thaw cycle, the reason why we use a reinforced soil structure is because they are non-frost susceptible. For frost, you need one of three things. You need water, you need freezing temperature, and another ingredient. And if you take one of those away, you don't get frost heaving. Also, these foundations are made of a drainable gravel, right? So the water can move through it freely. It can expand inside it. It's also a flexible system. So if you take, I always use a bar of soap as an example. So if you put something rigid in something flexible, and then you have the freeze thaw cycle, which releases and contracts and expand, it's like you're holding a bar of soap in your hand. So as you squeeze the bar of soap, eventually you're going to break it, or it's going to pop out of your hand. So this system here is flexible, so it's strain compatible. So we're replacing soil with soil. You're taking soil out, you're putting granular soil back in. And also you don't see it, but it has thousands and thousands of voids in here. So the water crystals can have room inside of the system to contract, expand, and release around the voids, and not having something rigid to actually push on. So that's technically, that's how we explain it on that's the short version. But from your experience, John, from not digging down to frost depth here in Ontario, have you ever noticed any freeze thaw cycle damages?
Yeah, none whatsoever.
That's awesome. And usually, like for a flat marker, I know that we just put it on the subgrade. For an upright marker, how deep do you guys usually dig? Like our standard is 12 inches, so you don't go any deeper than that, right?
For a monument or a marker?
For a marker.
Yeah, we only 4 inches, 6 inches max is as far as we dig.
And a monument, you don't go down to frost depth.
A monument for a foundation, the concrete, or with the MonuGrid? Sorry, with concrete we
The
go.
MonuGrid, sorry.
Oh, the MonuGrid, yeah. So 2 feet at the most.
Yep.
Depending on the size of the monument.
Sure.
That's great. So hopefully I've answered your question. If there's any other questions on the, or if you want me to elaborate on any of this, we do have the MonuGrid information session that's available. I think we're going to have the contact information for that after, but I do full-on information sessions, and we cover everything from sandy soil to freeze-thaw cycles. All right. All right. So can we talk about a little bit about the benefits when it comes to your team? So have you had any comments from your team since I've been there for the training, either in Hamilton or at Mount Pleasant? Have you ever had any feedback from your team about how they're liking the experience, or how much easier it is, or it could be, you know, something that they don't like too? What kind of feedback are you getting from the team as well?
Easy to install.
Yeah.
Not complicated. Yeah, they were, like I said, they enjoy it. There's lots of positive chatter about it. Yeah, all good. They're happy with it. And easy to install is the key for them, right? They're the ones doing the actual work. You know, it's not challenging, right? It's kind of like we've said, you excavate to the proper depth, the mat and your gravel, the marker goes on top. So they're happy with that for sure. But yeah, all around positive, and they're happy to be using the product.
That's great. And from your perspective in the office, what's been the biggest advantage for you? Also the time saving, or on the budgetary side, or quick turnover? So what from
Yeah,
the operational standpoint, what's your biggest advantage that you see?
time saving for sure. To me, I'm big on the care and maintenance of cemeteries. Again, like I mentioned, they're a huge part of our community. So knowing that we're doing this project, we're going in section by section, and our goal is to raise every marker, is huge for my business plan and my my vision of how we should have our cemeteries and see our cemeteries. A good example, Jonathan, is when you came in March, I think it was, when we had the training. We went to raise a marker, and then right beside it was a sunken marker that we found.
Yeah, I remember.
Right, and that's great. You know, if we didn't raise that marker,
it was completely buried.
It completely buried. That marker would be gone forever, right? So, things like that is what I see as a benefit, right? It's proper maintenance of cemeteries, quicker turnaround, and then 20, 30, 40 years down the road, whoever's in our cemeteries will be thanking us for installing the product, because there would be no markers to
Exactly.
raise. So.
That's funny that you say that, because that's where I was going with my next question is, what would you see as a future-proofed cemetery? Like, what would it look like in your ideal world?
Yeah. Level. Everything's safe, level, looking pristine.
Yeah.
Would be my vision, and how cemeteries should look. Absolutely.
And this, do you think that it's freed up your go ahead. Yeah, finish up.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know there's budget, right, for this, but I think if we can, start baby steps, invest a little bit of money every year, have it for every new installation, right? That'll go a long way as well. So it's not like, you throw everything at it, just take baby steps, and then eventually you'll convert your cemeteries.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe like you've just like you said, you just switched over to Mount Pleasant, but in your experience with the city of Hamilton, is this something that council or a board members could get behind if the numbers make sense? Is that something that cemetery boards would come on board with, or like to see more of these solutions?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would 100% agree. And then here in Ontario, having the care and maintenance fund really does help. That money is used specifically for that. There's no other, our legislation literally states that money is used to secure and maintain the markers. So it's important to build up that fund and have those funds to raise the markers and do the maintenance. So yeah, fully supportive. And when I was with the city, fully supportive of this. Again, it's aesthetics of your cemeteries, raising markers, ensuring that our residents and clients are happy with where their loved ones are buried.
That's awesome. And it would naturally as you start adapting this would free up time for your team to focus on other infrastructure and other things that benefit the cemetery, right? Instead of just concentrating on work
Absolutely.
orders and lifting monuments. I know that
Yep.
a lot of cemeteries have erased their backlogs when it comes to installing monuments, because concrete companies don't want to come in for 1 or 2 markers. They want to come in for a bank of them. So, we had a cemetery that had 75 monuments sitting there for a year and a half, and they were ready. They
Wow.
were able to erase that backlog completely in one afternoon,
Wow.
because they were able to go out and do it themselves, right? So I think that would free up some of your team's time to do other things around the cemetery that doesn't necessarily have to do with setting monuments.
Yeah, absolutely. If I think about, digging a foundation, which is the current process, we're digging 4 to 5 feet right below the frost line. Then you're going to shore it up if things start to collapse. Then you're going to create a frame for it. Then you're gonna do 8 or 9 or 10, so you have a full concrete truck. You're going to order the truck. You're going to pour the foundation. You're going to level it off, take off the frame. So there's a lot of steps that go behind that. Where with MonuGrid, it's you're digging 2 feet down. It's a pretty simple and straightforward setup and installation, and it's done in a day. Where foundations, you're digging. It could be for a whole week. You're digging all these foundations. The following week, you're pouring. Where this could be done in a day or 2, right? So there's a huge difference.
Exactly, because as soon as you're done building the foundation, the monument can go on, right?
There's no curing time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to go into the questions here.
Sure.
So how deep
I've
would you
answered.
dig for a 4-inch granite base to install a flush mount bronze marker, or would you only use 1 layer of grid at the very top? So for flat markers, like I'll let you explain how you do it, John. So for flat markers, how would you install it, and then I'll chime in after.
Yeah, for a flat marker. So again, it's 4 inches thick. I think that's what I heard.
Yep.
So we would dig down 6 inches. We would have the mat, make sure that, we would tamp the ground to make sure we have compacted soil. We would lay down the MonuGrid mat. We would fill it in with screening, compact that, put the marker on top, topsoil and seed around the edges if required. And that would be it.
Yeah, so exactly. So for flat markers, that's all you need to do is you dig the thickness of the marker and the grid together, and then you put the grid directly on the subgrade. So what we do here at MonuGrid is we usually go with, okay, well, what are you doing with concrete and how can we convert it to MonuGrid to make it better? And since most cemeteries don't put anything under their flat markers, 1 grid directly on the soil is 1,000 times better than just leaving it directly on the ground. So that's all you need for a flat marker is 1 layer directly under the MonuGrid, directly on the soil. So do you recommend using 2 MonuGrids stacked on every monument instead of using 1? So for upright markers, our standard is 12 inches and 2 layers. And then for our flat markers, it's 1 layer directly underneath.
There is a question there, Jonathan, about using MonuGrid on a hill.
Yeah, so using MonuGrid on a hill, it can be done. You can do it with just MonuGrid, or you can do it with a concrete cap as well. If you need a wall, let's say that, one side of the facing is going to be 4 or 5 inches out of the ground, and the other side is going to be flush into the hill. There are some situations where concrete works well, and there are some situations where you might need it. The point being that every industry that pours concrete, apart from cemeteries, tests the soil before they do it, and they prepare the soil before the concrete goes on. So if it's a situation where we're discussing and there's a need for concrete because you need a solid shear wall, we can build retaining walls with reinforced soil, but with concrete, it's going to be a lot easier for you to pour and make it level. So in some instances where we do recommend that you put a concrete cap, number 1, you're using a lot less concrete. And number 2 is you're preparing the soil before you put something on it, because concrete is extremely heavy and it pushes the soil sideways. So as the soil gets pushed away by the weight, then the concrete starts to sink. But if you prepare your soil properly, like they do for slab on grade warehouses and stuff like that, you can eliminate the sinking of the concrete because there's something strong there that's being held together, just like rebar for soil with the MonuGrid. All right.
So I have a question for John, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind. So John, I travel a lot and see a lot of cemeteries, and even in our own backyard here, and where a lot of my families are resting, concrete, there's probably $500,000 of concrete that needs to be excavated and replaced. And when you see something like that, it's disheartening, number one. But number two, the problem with a lot of these cemeteries is that they actually depend on family members, from years ago to potentially pay for the funds to get this excavated and replaced, which can be very expensive for cemeteries. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot now, is that concrete is probably the common denominator of why a lot of these cemeteries experience sinking and whatnot. So I think with MonuGrid, definitely MonuGrid is going to help future installations. For generational family members nowadays aren't ready to open up their wallets and spend $1,500, $2,000 to get the whole process started over again. So I just wanted to make that comment that we see that a lot in many, many cemeteries. And abandoned cemeteries, I know in Ontario, there's a law that cemeteries have to, or municipalities have to take over the cemetery. And this is a great, great way for municipalities to cut their costs if they have to repair some of them. And it's a shame to see all that,
Mhm.
and depending on generational family members to foot the bill, because cemeteries can't afford it.
Yeah. Agreed.
So do you have, obviously everyone has this, but you have areas in your cemetery that are softer than others, or they have different type of soil conditions and stuff like that, right? So you can use MonuGrid in all of those situations. You've never had a situation where you don't think it's going to work?
No, never. Yeah, we have all kind of different types of soil, and never had a situation where MonuGrid wouldn't work.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do we have any other questions for John or for myself in the chat?
I just have a comment I want to add is, one of the reason why I went with MonuGrid is twofold for me. Number one is obviously the virtual care of cemeteries, but number two is also sustainability, right? All companies are looking at sustainable options where this is, right? We're not pouring a foundation, we're not pouring concrete into the ground, right? We don't have a backhoe idling to dig this 4 foot to 5 foot hole, a truck carrying away the soil, excess soil, all that stuff. There's so many benefits when you look at the sustainability piece of switching to MonuGrid, right? So that's I just wanted to mention that because that's one of the reasons why I went with MonuGrid is for that as well, as it's becoming more of a sustainable cemetery and cemetery operator.
No, that's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you know if your counselors or anything like that have conversations with the public about using MonuGrid? Because I know that some cemeteries, the families don't see concrete sitting there. They see concrete everywhere else. So, some cemeteries have a little bit of a challenge when it comes to explaining this to the families and how it's going to be long-term and better for their monument. So have you ever come across a situation like that where you've explained to the families that this is, a better way of doing it?
Yeah, for sure. And just like with your staff, this would be a change for your clients and your families, right? They're used to a concrete foundation, and now you're telling them that this is just as good, if not better. So yeah, there's an education piece there too, right? There's there's a change management involved with that.
Mhm.
Providing them the proper information of and the benefits, and the cost is much less than a concrete foundation, right? So there's a huge benefit for the family as well. So yeah,
So
it's yeah, go ahead.
So talking about cost, John, just real quick, because this leads me back to a question that we have in the chat. So there's someone that's asking, do you have a cost comparison, concrete versus MonuGrid, um, you know, including time, material, and everything that's involved with building the foundation. So what have you seen on the budget side? How's your savings like?
Yeah, I would say there's probably going with MonuGrid is I'm going to say about 75% less than doing a foundation. I don't have the exact numbers.
Yeah.
I haven't crunched those numbers to be truthful. But just back of the napkin math, I would say at least 75% less, right? Just
Okay,
think
so
about
just-
labor, yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
And just quickly, John, for the benefit of everybody on this call, we've done a lot of surveys and we've checked with many cemeteries. So the average cost of a foundation, including time, material, to do a concrete foundation is roughly about $300 is the spend of time and material, the concrete, the forming, all that kind of stuff. With MonuGrid, and sorry, it's a roughly about 3-hour process with concrete. So times that by 2 people, so let's say 6 man hours. With MonuGrid, and you can vouch for this, typically it'll be about a half an hour, one guy, and you're looking at $56 or $60 max, right? So you're 75%, you're very, very close, very, very close on that.
Yeah.
I just want to make a broad statement, if you don't mind, guys, is that if you look at cemeteries now that have sunken markers or sunken MonuGrid, sunken concrete foundations, if those were all on MonuGrid right now, the ones that had moved or sunken, the fix is very, very quick and easy to do, where you cannot do that with a concrete foundation. So I know that, if there's skeptics out there that are saying, well, I don't know about this or using MonuGrid. In 10, 15, 20 years from now, when that concrete foundation has started to move or sunk, if that would have been MonuGrid, that's a maximum of a half an hour fix. And you don't even have to ask the family to pay for that, right? Because you could fix it and adjust it as you go. So just a broad comment.
Awesome, thanks.
There's a
So
question
there's
about
about-
columbariums, John.
yeah, there's about 15 minutes left, so I'm just gonna
Yep.
see if there are any questions and if there's any questions for John as well. So for the question, the rough price comparison, so you heard that John saves about 75% versus concrete time material. We have used this product on larger products like columbariums. And I think one important thing that we have to mention here is that we have a soil engineer on staff. So it's a geotechnical engineer. That's all he does is reinforce soil. So if you have something that you're not sure about or a product that you want to install and you want to use a MonuGrid foundation, we can provide the designs for all and any type of structure that you would want to put on here. So these grids were originally conceived as a drivable surface. So this is meant for constant vehicular traffic, which is dynamic loading, to prevent having to put underground sewers and water retention, because with this, we can build permeable driveways and permeable roads. So this product comes from the construction and civil industry. It's only new to cemeteries because we brought it over to the cemetery industry because we saw a problem in the industry with the concrete foundations sinking and what have you, just ground earthwork issues. So we've taken this concept that's been working for 30, 40 years in construction, and we did it in a small scale that is manageable for cemeteries to undertake projects themselves. So you can see there, Pete is sharing his screen. You can see a columbarium there on the left. That's something that was done within the day by the maintenance crew at the cemetery where they would otherwise not have done it.
This is
When
Boston.
it comes to columbariums, so I have a question there. How would you fix a columbarium? So for columbariums, again, we work directly with our engineer. We take the weight of the columbarium. We do a little bit of investigation on what type of soil you're going to be putting it on. And then from there, we build or we design the foundation, and we send you the plans on how to build it yourself. Some of these foundations might have one or more layers of MonuGrid within them. So if you join the information session, I go through all of this on how and why it works, how it reduces the stress that's transferred to the soil, how it reduces further compaction of the soil. So really, to answer your question, how would you fix a columbarium? Well, we would do it in a way that you wouldn't have to fix it. So we over-engineer these foundations when it comes to these bigger structures, so that it is a one and done thing. So just like how we build bridge approach slabs, that's pretty much how it looks underground. It's just layered gravel and grid all the way down to the soil. So this particular columbarium was done on 2 feet of granular soil with 3 layers of MonuGrid. So one directly on the subgrade, one in the middle, and one on top.
And just to add to that, we also have designs that will allow you to install this beautiful piece of granite actually on concrete pavers. So we design the actual foundation and we design the surface so that you'll have a nice looking surface sitting on concrete pavers versus on granular or anything like that. So, and eliminate concrete altogether.
So I see another question there. What's the fill material used in the MonuGrid system? So we use a crusher run. Here it's called granular A or 3/4 minus. And basically it's gravel that's been reduced to the size of sand all the way to 3/4 inches. So it's a good blend of various different sizes, so that when you put it into the ground and you compact it, it compacts very into a very dense cube of gravel. And you want to use that material throughout the system from top to bottom. We do have some instances where cemeteries will fill the top layer of MonuGrid with soil and seed, because you can do reinforced grass on top. But for the most part, we fill it up with a crusher run, a 3/4 minus crusher run. Are there any other questions for myself or for John?
Yeah, John, it's Charles here. We have another question from Candace. What about corner markers? They are a constant maintenance issue. Can this help something this small?
Absolutely, yeah. These MonuGrid is easy to cut. So you can cut one of those pieces into 4, and each piece would be enough for a corner marker. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Basically, anything that you want to build a solid foundation under, you can use MonuGrid, and you can do it yourself in minutes or within the day. Whether it's a corner marker or a columbarium foundation, cemeteries are usually equipped with the equipment that they need to go out and do the excavation. And then the rest of it is just lay and compact the gravel, right? So it's extremely simple. Every application is the same, whether you're doing a road or a monument. It's lay and compact. When you're adding layers inside of the system, you don't have to level each and every layer. The layers that are inside the system are for the confinement and to spread the load. So basically, MonuGrid is like rebar for soil. So it keeps everything together as the pressure tries to push it away. So you only need to level the top layer of the MonuGrid before the monument goes on.
We have another question here that it says, how much does the MonuGrid footprint exceed the base of the monument?
Yeah, so that's another good question. John, operationally for yourself, you leave the tile as big as you can, right? Because right now you're doing restoration and stuff like that. Is there any instances where you cut the grid and to the size of the monument, and why would you have done that? And then I'll answer the question as well myself.
No, we leave it. If it overhangs, by a few inches, it's doesn't really impact our operations. If it's a smaller marker, we wouldn't use the entire mat. We cut that down a bit. But yeah, it's overhanging a few inches on either side, non-issue for us.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we suggest is 1 to 2 inches around the monument. Operationally, if you can't have any of the grid sticking out in front because you have to dig right up against the monument, or you can cut the grid to the exact size of the monument. Like, it's not going to make or break the foundation if it's cut flush to all sides of the monument. But what we do want to have ideally is a bigger surface, right? So just like a snowshoe, we want to spread the load over a larger area. What I often use is a bed of nails when I do my presentations. When you see an illusionist lay on a bed of nails, it's never 1 or 2. It's always a bed of 10,000 of them, so that each one of those little nail heads can take a little bit of the pressure off of the illusionist's back, so that way you don't get punctured. So the same thing here, we want to spread it over a larger area, and effectively what we're doing is building a small bed of nails, but we're doing it with gravel, so we're building hundreds of little gravel pavers, and each of those little gravel pavers takes a little bit of the weight of the monument. So obviously, the bigger the footprint, the better, but if you have to operationally cut it down to the size of the monument, that's not something that's going to catastrophically fail. So ideally, 1 to 2 inches all around the monument, bigger if you can, but you can cut the grid if you need to. And I just saw the question about cutting the grid. So you can cut the grid with anything that goes through plastic easily. So I usually use a Sawzall with a metal blade. You can use a quick cut. I have some cemeteries that use old skill saw wood blades to cut through it. The plastic is low density polyethylene. So John, as you can attest, the grid is extremely strong, but it's flexible at the same time. Like, you can bend these in half and it's virtually indestructible. I don't know if your crew, John, or yourself have tried to break one of our grids, but it's
not sure, to be honest. But I know that they're fairly easy to cut. That's one thing that my staff have told me. Simple process, so not too tedious.
So they're easy to cut, but they're extremely hard to break, right? So we can bend the grid in half and it'll snap back to its original position because we use low density polyethylene. So low density polyethylene has a lifespan of 450 years. This has been proven for a while. They use low density polyethylene to land landfills, because it's going to outlast the trash that it's on, and it prevents the trash from leaching into the ground. So the plastic that we use is extremely important. It's 100% recycled and it's 100% recyclable. So once you've cut this, you can throw it back in the recycling bin and it's no problem. So the grid is extremely hard to crush and tear apart, but it's easy to cut. So that's one advantage that we have over high density polyethylene grids. Because I mean, you can find grids just like any other product pretty much anywhere, but the quality is something that we pride ourselves on. Of the plastic, you don't want the plastic breaking under the monument, because then it defeats the purpose. You can cut them with tin snips. Do you end the cut at a certain point? So you can end the cut wherever you want. If there's cells that are open a little bit, then that's fine. It's not, again, the foundation's not going to fail if you have some open-ended tiles. The only thing that I would suggest when you're cutting the grid is that you cut it on the lug side. So it's a lug and slot system. So you want to cut it on the lug side, because if it is big enough to attach to the next grid for a monument that's a little larger, you can use a cutoff piece and attach it to the end of the grid to extend your footprint a little bit. Are there any other questions for myself or John at this point?
There is a question here, Jonathan,
Yep.
from Bill Barnes saying, is there any issue with weed eating around the gravel product?
No. So you can go ahead with a weed eater and smack the grid with it if you want. So you can cut the grass over it as well. Just make sure that if you're filling it back up with soil and seed, because I have some cemeteries that do decorative gravel in the grid and stuff like that. If you're redoing soil and seed, make sure that it's just below grade but again, we cover that in the training so that you can mow the lawn and stuff like that on top of the grid. And you can do the weed whacker. The grid is inert, so it doesn't leach into the ground. It doesn't deteriorate either. So, yeah, it won't stop you from doing your grass maintenance.
Okay, so since we have just a couple of minutes here,
Yep.
On the call with us is Mark DeRusha, and Mark DeRusha Supplies is the main distributor of MonuGrid in Canada. So if we have Canadians on this call, and we also have our US friends on the call as well. The other thing is when you purchase MonuGrid, we provide you with full support. So we're going to train the minute that you buy even one piece to try it or a bundle to try it. We offer we offer virtual training so that you will know exactly how to install it. We are open to anytime you have questions, technical questions. Jonathan is always available, and sometimes as well with bigger projects, we will actually go on site. So we help you in that sense. So I want to thank.
I guess I could turn that to John for the last question. Is when it comes to the training and installation and the support, that you find that we are able to communicate with us very easily. How has your experience been with myself and the company on that front?
Excellent, great communication. Either a phone call or emails. Like Jonathan, and work with Jonathan and Charles to set up some training. There was 4 or 5 different locations that we went to throughout a couple of days. Very organized. On time, prepared. I get nothing but positive. That's for sure.
You're not getting a raise, John. You're not getting a raise, John.
I tried, Jonathan. Sorry.
That's great. Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank John. A big thank you to you. You've been a very loyal supporter of MonuGrid, and it's tremendous that you're able to help us like that. And I want to thank everybody who's on the call today and all of your questions. I do want to invite you to reach out to us. If you'd like, we can give you information sessions, technical sessions for you to learn more on the technical side of things. We do that, on a daily basis where we'll actually set up a virtual meeting with you and your crew if you have a lot of questions. And we get more into the technical aspect where Jonathan has a great presentation there. But so if there's
the information session is about 45 minutes at the most. If it runs over that, it's because there are more questions specific to the cemetery that the people are working at. This presentation was made from a poll of 100 questions that we asked our cemeteries and our clients. So it's a presentation that's based off the most common questions. So usually when you come onto the information session in about 45 minutes, you get a pretty good idea of how and why it works on the technical side. And then we go on to the installation training with it, which is another 30 minutes about, and then off you go.
So if there's no more questions, again, thank you, John. And I thank all of you for participating. And please reach out. We're here to help you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, John. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Take care.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
I'll stick around to see if there's any questions.
Good job, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
We're good.
Hey, Mark,
Thanks,
how
Mark.
you doing?
I'm doing well, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thanks.
All right. Well, thanks again,
All right.
guys. Thanks for coming on, Mark, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Take care, Mark.